Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing great out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day. I do hope everyone's been having a great week out there so far. There is a lot to discuss in this morning's video, and of course, we're going to kick it off by speaking on the tropics. The first thing we'll speak on is Invest 93L. What's going on with this system this morning? What's been going on with it, the last 24 hours or so? So we'll speak on it. Break it down, and then we'll give you the latest from the National Hurricane Center as far as their thinkings on, is this thing going to develop or not into a depression, a named storm? The next name is Dexter. Then we'll go over all model guidance. We'll speak on a little bit, but there's not a whole lot to show you on some of these model runs because you can't really see anything really developing. But I am going to dive in to even, nerd out with you guys, I guess you could say, on why it could have a chance to develop at the last second before ultimately going into land, and why it potentially could never develop. So that'll be kind of a nerding out section of the video. We'll explain things, get into it, and try to explain things where you guys, the audience, certainly can understand. We'll speak a little bit about impacts also. Then we'll switch gears and we'll speak a little bit about the MDR, the Tropical Atlantic. MDR stands for Main Development Region. It's an area of the Atlantic that doesn't normally start to wake up until about August, even September, but you can start to see signs sometimes, some hurricane seasons, that is beginning to wake up even at the end of July. So we're starting to see a small signal that maybe there is a tropical wave that could emerge over the next several days off Africa that, who knows, might have a chance to develop. So we'll speak a little bit on that. Then after we get done giving you guys a long and lengthy update on the tropics, we'll speak on today's weather, and there'll be many areas that we need to zoom into that run the risk of flash flooding and severe weather once again. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. Take advantage of those timestamps. They're there to help you, and just jump to certain parts of the video you want to watch. And more importantly, if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. No Bible devotion this morning, guys. It's just been a week. It hasn't been a bad week, just been a tiring week. Been struggling to get to sleep. Just happens sometimes. So I like to have a good amount of time to work on those Bible devotions with you guys, and I just was not able to get up like I was supposed to. So I promise you guys I will double, even triple down over the next few days with a Bible devotion each morning. So let's get rocking and rolling. So this is what this system looks like right now. It's totally displaced as far as low-level features and mid-level features, meaning, all your convection, which, most of the time is your mid-level features, is way over here. I mean, these are big thunderstorms over the northern Gulf, of course. This is the coastline of Florida right here. This is Georgia up here. This is Alabama. This is, Mobile, Biloxi, Gulfport, Mississippi. And you can see southeast Louisiana on your screen over here. But, honestly, just normal run-of-the-mill thunderstorms look like this on satellite. Where's the actual leftovers of this low-level circulation, which, as we talk about, is the heart and soul of these tropical systems? Well, I'm going to draw on this a little bit. Let's make sure this is going to work for us, and it is, so we're good. It's actually, right in here somewhere. You can barely see it. I think we'll be able to see it a lot better, and once the satellite visibility comes up, the sun comes up over this Invest, and we might be able to really see that low-level circulation well. But it's right where I just drew that circle. It's kind of over land. Maybe parts of it is over portions of the ocean, the Gulf here, but it's not healthy. I mean, if it's interacting with land, of course, it's not going to develop. Sometimes land interaction actually can help these systems spin up a little bit more. But the thing that we will watch really is this thing going to develop some sort of new low-level circulation with this mid-level convection, kind of in this area. And I would honestly say really more so this area, maybe later today into tonight. That's a big question. If it doesn't, then there's a shot that this never develops. It's just going to bring a lot of rain, and I think regardless it's going to do that. But I'm going to talk about why over the next 48 hours it could develop at the last second. And obviously I kind of just explained why it potentially couldn't, because it never can get its act together and kind of reform the heart of the system, that low-level circulation, if you will. So that's the satellite. There ain't a whole lot to show you. And if you match up those blobs of colors that I showed you on your screen, which are kind of in this area, right? That indicates colder cloud tops, stronger convection. The stronger these updrafts, the taller they are, the the higher up they get in the atmosphere, and the higher up you get, the colder it gets, which is indicated by those colder cloud tops I just showed you. And it makes sense because if you look right here, this is where our convection is, right where all those blow up in colors I just showed you. And then this is where our actual low-level circulation is. You can see like a little curvature of this. It's right over here, but I mean, man, there's just not a whole lot to show you. This honestly just looks like normal Gulf storms. So the thing we're watching today is can this thing kind of develop a new low-level circulation down here? Or maybe does this dip back over the open waters of the northern Gulf? Maybe it doesn't. But regardless, a lot of rain is already entering areas of southeast Louisiana. So this is current, conditions with this system. National Hurricane Center has stayed conservative, and I think they've done a really one heck of a job doing that. They've have not risen any more than a 40% chance of development. So, and that's what it is this morning. In that orange area, the X marks the spot. This is where that low-level circulation is, whatever's left over it that I just talked about, over kind of where the bend kind of meets the panhandle of Florida, if you will. And in that orange area, so we have a 40% chance of this developing to a tropical depression or a named storm. Like I said, next name is Dexter. So, if you had to ask me right now before we get into the gritty details of this, what's your thinkings this morning? I would say that I think the chances of this developing into a named storm have dropped somewhat for sure. But I still think it has a chance here. So we're going to go into why. But let's move past this. That's the latest icon. I'm not going to, spend an eternity breaking down each model run here, but, this is for 21Z Wednesday, so it's today. It's pretty much this afternoon. You see this big blob of green, little splotches of yellow down here. This is where our tropical system is. So I want you to watch as we move this forward here. You see the yellow showing up, more intense tropical thunderstorm activity. But right as we get into Thursday morning, tomorrow morning, it pops off that L again, so showing maybe a deeper low pressure. This is what I'm talking about. I do think right before this ultimately kind of crashes into Louisiana, I think this is going to have a chance to get its act together the last seconds. Most model guidance shows it. I'm going to show you and tell you why model guidance shows that here in a second. But icon shows it. But regardless, a lot of moisture getting thrown into Louisiana. But it's fair to say that the icon was probably too aggressive. Remember, I even told you, I'm going to always admit what I say even if it's wrong. I honestly took sides with the icon. I thought I was onto something. And, we're not done with this. We're not done breaking it down. It could potentially be onto something, but this thing is, unless it just makes some crazy dip deep down the Gulf, this thing only has about 36 to 48 hours, maybe 72 hours over water, if it can even get over water. Now the GFS, what is it showing this morning? Same thing starting off this afternoon, just blobs of green, just rain down here. There ain't a whole lot to really show you here. And it doesn't even actually pop up an L on our screen, which, we don't want to focus too much on that. It just kind of helps us see exactly where that central low pressure could be based off model guidance. But just throw some rains in Louisiana, and there really ain't a whole lot to dissect there. Now, the Euro, a little bit more aggressive, and it started upticking a little bit over the last 2 days, I would say. But, we get into, say, tomorrow morning. Now, the low pressure's right in here, kind of in the same spot as the icon was, and it does show a lot of hefty thunderstorm activity pretty much all across the northern Gulf, and especially, really close to the southeast coastline of Louisiana. And it does plow this right into Louisiana, but once again, no L pops up or anything like that. It says, hey, L marks a spot, X marks a spot, whatever. But, it does throw a lot of tropical moisture into areas of Louisiana, and it could just bring a huge influx of moisture across the Gulf states as we get over the next, really the next few days into the weekend, for sure. So a lot of rain still expected regardless. And the next thing we look at here and how the Euro shows a somewhat strengthening scenario as we look at that low-level vort, sort of the energy at 850 millibars, about 4,000 to 6,000 feet. Up in the air, about a mile up in the air, right? I want you to watch how some of these yellows and oranges right here get more sort of orange and even red right before it makes landfall. Bang, you can see just the cyclonic rotation of this right as it plows in the southeast Louisiana. You can see it's trying to get its act together right at the last second, and then, of course, it hits land. And I wouldn't be surprised if the actual low-level circulation might make landfall sort of, I mean, as far west as maybe the central Louisiana coastline. Just something we need to watch for sure. So continue to move forward here. Now, I do want to show you the HFA model, which is a hurricane model. You know, we can switch back and forth between them until the cows come home. And what you normally do when you're breaking down these models is see, first off, you see which model is initializing the best. And listen, this thing is, we can't really speak too much on how it's initializing because, I mean, honestly, I mean, it can't really initialize as anything because there really isn't anything going on right now, a whole lot. You're just leftover remnants of a spin that crossed over Florida over the last 24 hours. But, you know, as we get into this afternoon, it is wanting to, you know, even this evening, you know, it's wanting to deepen this into 1,003 millibar low. I don't think that's going to happen. It's probably overdoing this, but it eventually gets into a 999 millibar low later tonight as we start to get a little bit closer to Louisiana. This is Louisiana right here. Okay, somebody in the comments wasn't happy about the fact that I wasn't labeling the borders of the state. So let's make sure we say them. Just note, guys, I don't edit any of these videos. I just kind of bring up all the tabs and I talk over all of them. If I literally edited every feature like that, I would spend all day on a video. I wish I could for you guys. But as we get into the overnight period, I mean, it wants to get this system like the actual low-level kind of dominant feature of this system, kind of south of Louisiana. I guess I got a frog in my throat or something. I do apologize about that. It's still there, though. We're just going to rock with it. But we're getting into tomorrow morning. It's showing a lot of deep convection, you know, south of Louisiana here in the northern Gulf. And eventually it does make landfall as, you know, just outside of 1,000 millibar low, 1,004. And you can see how this thing is really getting its act together right before. You can see how it's starting to spin. I'm going to back it up here. Watch how it starts to spin a little bit. And then it kind of bounces off the coastline, and yeah, it just gets everywhere after that. And this is what these hurricane models do. Now, I'm going to show you the same thing. It's the HFA model. And you can't, this is starting off for today around midday, right? The low pressure is probably right into here. The actual center of that low-level circulation. Now, could a new one be developing sort of somewhere over here? Absolutely. But right now, it's right here. Could still be around this area here in the next 6-7 hours or so. So what's really steered this from right here to right here is the flow around this rigidified pressure. So it's went like this, it's dove down like that, and it's doing like this. You can actually see, even before I just drew the arrows on the screen, these lines of these arrows embedded into them. So that's the flow in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Now, once upon a time, this flow is kind of going like this, and that's ultimately how this energy got slung off the coast of the southeast with kind of a stalled frontal boundary that started popping off a lot of thunderstorm activity off the coast of the southeast. So eventually this got steered over Florida overnight, and you know, it's right here in this area, and that's the steering currents. That's why it did what it did. So anybody is saying this is odd, this is weird about the directional, basically the direction this came from. I mean, if you just look at the pattern in the upper levels of the atmosphere, it'll show you there's nothing too crazy or weird about it. It'll explain it clear as day, honestly. Now, I know that this isn't always going to be the easiest to understand. Totally get it. That's why I jump on here, talk the weather with you guys, nerd out, and try to explain this in a way where you guys understand. But let's get back to the point here. This is where our system probably is. Now, this system is dealing with a lot of flow coming out the east. So we're getting this easterly flow just kind of coming in like this. We're also getting what you can't see because this is around 200 millibars, 40,000 feet up in the air. So this is the upper levels of the atmosphere, right above this actual convection of the system, is we're getting some flow probably coming in like this. So this is creating some shear, really pretty much impacting this storm system. But that's, you know, I've kind of already broke down the steering of the system. What's going to happen is, as we move this in time, you know, we get to, say, Thursday morning, it's saying that this low pressure is going to be right into here, right? Still probably dealing with some shear. You can't really see it well in here because this is the upper levels of the atmosphere. But this flow Remember, in the lower to mid levels with these tropical systems, the flow is going to go like this. It's going to spin cyclonically just like that. In the upper levels, in this current picture on what's being modeled, you see the lines with the arrowheads kind of embedded into them. The flow is kind of shooting out. Then it's going like this and it's going like that. Ridging is affecting the flow around and on top of the system. And it kind of goes like this and like that. So on top of the storm, you're getting a lot of air that's being, dispersed outward. We call that divergence aloft. And basically air rises, and if, the atmosphere supports kind of the air being pushed out away from the system, that leaves more room for more air to rise. Rising air allows for the sustaining and firing of convection, shower and storm activity. Shower and storm activity moistens up the atmosphere, and we know that a tropical system likes moist air. So what this does is that moist air can cocoon, kind of protect that low-level circulation with moist air, even if there's dry air kind of nearby. If it can actually successfully cocoon itself with moist air, then it's not going to be impacted much by dry air as much, at least. Now, dry air could eventually eat away that moist core, and that dry air can get entrained into that low-level circulation. But in general, that's something we watch for as this gets closer tomorrow to Louisiana. Can this get a nice bubble of moist air around the actual heart and soul of the system? So I really think that the shear will lessen up. I don't think you'll get as much as of a direct, I don't think you'll get as much directional shear impacting the system. The difference between flow and different levels of the atmosphere. Storm systems don't like that. They like that even flow. So that mixed with the fact that we got air being expanded outward, I think this will allow for a little bit more of a moist feed. And you can see that pretty well here as we started off this morning. You see all this kind of brown area right here. This is dry air. The green air is moist air. So there's a lot of dry air nearby. Now, as we start to move forward here, we get into this evening, based off this run of the HFA model, it looks like it's really starting to get more moist. And that's the thing we'll watch for this evening. Are we going to get some blowups, convection? Are we going to get another low-level circulation that forms? That's a big question. And can this protect itself by a lot of convection, mid-level convection here? And, as we start to get into, say, tomorrow morning, now you got what looks like a pretty nice, tight, moist field of air. So, flow's going in like this, like that, and you're not seeing none of this dry air, getting wrapped up into here. It's all moist air. So the system has an opportunity, I think sometime tomorrow, if it can develop, that heart and soul and that low-level circulation again, to develop, I think, right up to the landfall, ultimately probably somewhere in Louisiana. Now, it does look like, it's a little bit of dry air is getting mixed in again, but I'm telling you, this thing, it has the makings of pulling a fast one right at the last second. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at here. So, what you gather from all that is upper level ridging could allow for an atmosphere that supports an outflow. This outflow will push air away from the system, allowing for more rising air. Shear will lessen up. So if this system can try to form another low-level circulation, or if the low-level circulation that's current right now can dip back over the open waters of the Gulf, I think it'll take some time, but I think this thing sometime tomorrow into tomorrow night could get its act together at the last second and maybe develop into a quick tropical storm. So anyways, the next thing you'll look at is sea surface temperatures. Another thing this thing does have going for it is, the sea surface temperatures are 30, 31, 32 degrees Celsius. You convert that to Fahrenheit, guys, in this area, and the sea surface temperatures are in the mid to upper 80s, even close to, I'm sure there's some buoys out here that's like close to 90 degrees. So your sea surface temperatures support tropical development. No doubt about it. Some of the warmest waters even in the world are currently in the northern Gulf. Now, I'm not saying they are the warmest waters, but some of the warmest waters. So it's very warm. It's not a good sign for the heart of hurricane season. But listen, it warms up like this in the Gulf just about every single season. So anyways, as far as how much rainfall is expected from this, I think this is going to be really confined as far as, multiple inches of rain to the Gulf coastline, Mobile, Gulfport, Biloxi, a few inches of rain's likely. But once you get up, the road a little bit up to Montgomery, Meridian, Jackson, maybe a half an inch to an inch and a half of rain. And some of this is just mixed with just your normal summer thunderstorm activity. But of course, taking a deeper look at Louisiana, which could definitely get the most rain. Once you start to get into some of those yellow areas, guys, I mean, this is, 4 to 6 inches of rain. They've actually dropped off some of the totals in this area, but it could easily go right back up. So one last thing we'll talk about, I don't want to talk this to death because this is pretty far out. We're actually going to start this kind of between day 7 and day 10. So this is next Thursday morning, so 8 days from now, right? July 24th. The Euro is trying to develop a tropical wave. Got a 1013 millibar low, and what we call this area out here is the MDR, Main Development Region, Tropical Atlantic. And as we move in time, kind of maintains the tropical wave, eventually weakens it. So that's just one operational run, right? Now I will say that the GFS, let's take a look at it because it's running right now, right? And we're going to start this a little bit earlier in time. So we'll take this into about the same time period. Does it show what the Euro is showing? It does not. But I will tell you that the GFS, especially last night, was liking the idea of maybe some energy around the Lesser and Greater Antilles. There's a lot of moisture down here. And I'm telling you right now, I do not think we're done with the potential of homegrown activity. There's a lot of moisture out here, and I'm just freezing in a one hour time frame, which is like day 11. But there's a lot of, it's going to get hot and humid across the South. The dog days of summer are going to flex their guns across a good chunk of the country. I always consider the dog days of summer pretty much the second half of July. Some people might call it August. Always have considered it mid to late July. Pretty much right now to July 31st. But it is going to be hot. But maybe a good news out of this is you're going to get summer thunderstorms to cool it down. So I do think there's going to be a lot of energy kind of hanging out down here, and this could pop off another low pressure. This has happened twice already. The first time is with Chantal. The second time is the system we are watching right now. But, getting right back out here, this is, of course, the potential development of Dexter right here that we just broke down. But this is what I'm talking about maybe the MDR waking up. And when I say waking up, I'm not talking about cross-ocean hurricanes. But there is, the Euro ensemble, and I don't like this graphic too much. I think it just can be off sometimes. But it does have, in this kind of yellowish green color, a 50, actually it's a 40 to 50% chance of a tropical depression developing out here in the tropical Atlantic. So I'll have to watch a wave coming off Africa. Can this develop? Even if it does, is it even going to bother anybody? It's a big question here. So nothing to worry about whatsoever, though. And it does show some members. Here are the members. I mean, it only shows like not even 10 members out of 51 members. So there is some members showing that tropical wave, but none of them are very strong. And this does only go out about day 10. But that's an update on the tropics. Talking about today's weather. There's a lot to talk about here, too. Let's get this, let's reset this radar. You can see a spin over Iowa, the Midwest. This is a low pressure. And this is actually going to bring a risk of a tornado or maybe a few tornadoes across areas of the Midwest today. So there's a lot of energy crossing over Iowa and surrounding states. We got energy up here in Canada. We got some thunderstorms over Kentucky, southern Indiana, southern Ohio this morning. There's our Gulf moisture we just broke down. A lot of rain falling across areas of southern Arizona. Got some energy going across the northern high plains. A little bit of thunderstorm activity. I would say more so just heavy rain activity across the low country of South Carolina. Some rain right here and near Hendersonville, near south of Asheville. But this is what's going on right now. A lot of energy is flying across the northern portion of the country. Now, watches, warnings, and advisories. I do think we got some nasty heat on the way for the eastern U.S. And, I haven't had a lot of time to really dive into the long-range forecast. And, tropics is really taking a lot of my attention. I do apologize for people that, really want an update on the lower 48. But there's just a lot to talk about. And I try not to make these videos go an hour. I do got my normal, 8 to 5 normal daytime job. And I wish I could just devote all my work time to the weather, maybe one day. But heat advisories pretty much west and east of the Mississippi River. And so if these orange counties, these are heat advisories, you mix these with the flood watches, what does that make? Just a hot and soupy atmosphere. And the same thing up here in southern New England, areas of the rest of the Northeast, all the way down to Delaware, the entire state of New Jersey, heat advisories. So a lot of heat alerts, and we got some scattered flood watches. Flood watches are up for areas of Wisconsin also. Now, the risk of severe weather for today, the Storm Prediction Center outlook. We do have a marginal risk, level 1 out of 5, stretching from the central high plains, going across the middle of the country, and expands across a huge portion of the Ohio Valley into interior areas of the Northeast, up to the Great Lakes region. But of course, we will zoom into some of these slight risk areas. It does include Denver, Cheyenne, down pretty much the Front Range. Level 2 out of 5 risk in the yellow. Tornado risk. Is that a 2% risk, even in Denver, guys? 2% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. Wind threat, just a respectable 5. But the hail threat is at a 15% risk. So be aware of these storms producing some hail today. They easily produce hail out here along the Front Range with just better lapse rates. It's always in place. Now, the slight risk over here, a little bit different setup. Chicago, Milwaukee, up to Green Bay, Madison. Dubuque, Rockford, down to Bloomington, Peoria. Level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. Also Gary, over to Grand Rapids. Now, tornado threat, it's displaced a little bit more to the west in this area, but a 2% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location in this green area. The wind threat, this is really what's driving that slight risk in this region today. To the west, that's more of a hail threat. 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour, and the hail threat is actually sub 5%. So, but there is a flash flooding threat today. There's a trio of areas to watch. First one down here across Kansas through Kansas City over to Quincy to Springfield. 15% risk of flash flooding in this area. We'll go back up here. I'm clicking like crazy. Sorry if you hear that too much in my mic. But Fort Dodge, over to Mason City, Dubuque, La Crosse, Madison, Appleton, Green Bay, Milwaukee, across Lake Michigan into the northern areas of lower Michigan. 15% risk of flash flooding there. And we've just dealt with a lot of flooding, especially in the eastern sections of this area over the last few weeks. 15% risk of flash flooding for Columbus, Pittsburgh, down to Morgantown, Hagerstown to D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia corridor, Harrisburg. 15% risk of flash flooding here. Let's break down the southeast first. There's not really anywhere I'm going to zoom into. As you can obviously tell, big, broad spin down here. It's going to likely produce a lot of shower and storm activity along the Gulf coastline. Normal just thunderstorm activity across the Carolinas and Georgia. Some storms are possible in southern Alabama. We could get some strong to severe thunderstorm activity in eastern Tennessee, eastern Kentucky. We're going to get some more just tropical downpours across northern Florida as this system pulls away. But honestly, there's not a whole lot to speak on for the southeast. I think tomorrow could be a big rain day as whatever's going on with this invest down here begins to try to make its kind of last hurrah, if you will. Now, the northeast, we'll zoom into a few states here. Just a broad look at things. We start to get into this afternoon. You see some big thunderstorms over Ohio, getting into western PA. These thunderstorms will be frequent in nature across West Virginia. Getting into western Virginia, northern Virginia. Look at PA getting thunderstorm activity. And then all of this stuff will begin to relax, maybe as we get into the overnight hours. But it does show these thunderstorms still packing a punch into New Jersey, like in the middle of the night tonight into Delaware. So we'll be aware of that. But just to take a closer look at some of these areas, Ohio being first, we take it to about early afternoon. Thunderstorms are already firing. I mean, Cleveland, anybody in Ohio could get storms. I would say maybe less in coverage once you get into the northwestern areas of the state. But this is 4 p.m. what the radar could potentially look like. Looks like Cincinnati, Dayton, getting some storms really close to Cleveland also. And then we get 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And we'll stop it just about right there. Now, we look at West Virginia also. We'll get to about Lunchtime, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not a whole lot going on. Some storms near Parkersburg. Storms hitting Wheeling. And then we get into 7, 8. Widespread thunderstorms across the state of West Virginia. So just be aware of that. Some of these will produce some small hail, some gusty winds, and they really get numerous in nature once you get into the eastern half of West Virginia, western Maryland. A lot of thunderstorm activity in that region too. And then things begin to, maybe mellow out as we start to get into the overnight hours. And, a lot of rain could potentially fall in some of these areas. Just look at how much rain. Let's go over just the next 36 hours. So could get a lot of rain. I should have showed you Ohio too. Let's go on and show you them. And a good inch and a half of rain is possible for certain areas of Ohio. Maybe even 2 inches of rain. Once you get into the eastern sections of the state. So taking a look at PA, quiet up to about lunchtime, and then we get after lunch, and then we're going to get some just widespread thunderstorms spreading across the state. This is 7, 8. 9. I mean, just a stormy evening. If you like a good old evening with some thunderstorms, you're going to like this evening. We could have an organized area of thunderstorms developing around State College Point south that could sweep across all the communities of eastern, really southeastern PA. And these could re-intensify and then get into New Jersey. So watch out in New Jersey, like I mentioned a couple minutes ago, for some storms later tonight. A lot of rain could fall in this area over the next just 24 to 36 hours. And so there's going to be some areas that get 1 inch, 2 inches of rain. So flash flooding will be a threat across the state of PA and surrounding sections of the state also. So just be aware. South Central U.S., really the only area I would say pay attention to is Colorado. And we're going to get some individual cells that do try to form in central Kansas, maybe in the panhandle of Oklahoma. We get some storms dancing around Kansas, and then more organized area of activity could get going in Kansas later tonight. So let's go on and zoom into some of these areas. Colorado being the first region. And boom, storms, stout westerly flow, west to east, moving across the area. So big storms could fire around Denver, Castle Rock, Colorado Springs, mid-afternoon. And then we start to get into later in the afternoon, the evening. Storms look pretty intense down here also in southern areas of Colorado. 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11. If you do live in the southeastern areas of the state, these storms could be intense later tonight, so be aware of that. And then looking at Kansas, quiet through about really late afternoon. And then boom, some storms could fire. Very isolated at first. I wouldn't rule out a tornado as isolated as these look. Garden City, Dodge City, Hayes, Salina, Hutchinson, some storms are possible. And they can dump a lot of heavy rain. They kind of pop up and don't seem to move a whole lot. And then a more organized area of thunderstorm development could get going in the southwestern areas of the state, Garden City, Dodge City. And then we could just get explosive thunderstorm development around midnight, potentially in the entire western areas of the state. It just could dump a lot of heavy rain throughout the overnight hours, and it does look like things kind of diminish and taper off after that. Now, the north central U.S., you can see that spinning low bringing a lot of thunderstorm activity across Wisconsin this afternoon. Could get some big thunderstorms, and we're getting those thunderstorms across even lower Michigan, and we'll get a more organized area of thunderstorms later tonight across Michigan. Just more so rain up here in the UP, and some more thunderstorm activity could develop in southern Ohio, northern Missouri later tonight. You can see it down there. I'm not going to zoom into Missouri, but I will zoom into quite a few states here, Wisconsin being the obvious state that I'll zoom into. So this is around 11 a.m. I'm going to cut off the time frame up here because it always cuts off some communities down here in southern Wisconsin. So I'll try to memorize the time as we go. This is around lunchtime. This is 1 p.m., 2 p.m. We could get some tornadoes out of some of these cells. You got a low pressure nearby. Kinematics will be well. So just be aware of some of these storms producing a tornado warning. Okay? And we continue to 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m., and it looks like the worst begins to move on off. But let's look at the updraft velocity swath. It is showing some rotation with some of these storms, guys. This indicates where we have more intense updrafts, potentially rotating updrafts. So just be aware of the tornado threat in this area today, and you get a lot of rain also, folks. I mean, this area in red, this is where, over 2 inches of rain could fall. Purple, 1 to 2. Could get 2 to 3, 4 inches of rain in some of these areas, so a lot of rain. Illinois, Indiana. Get to about midday, we get to early afternoon, we get to mid-afternoon, some thunderstorms possible in the northern half of Illinois. And now these could pack a punch too. They just don't look as widespread as maybe up here in your neighbors in Wisconsin, but they could produce some damaging winds, some hail, maybe even an isolated tornado. They just don't look as widespread. At 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11, thunderstorms will be possible later this evening in northern Indiana. And then we get into the overnight hours boundary, kind of sags south, and we could just get some maybe numerous thunderstorm activity in kind of a corridor somewhere in the northern half of Illinois and Indiana. But it's just trying to figure out where that sets up. And then waking up tomorrow morning, just going to have a lot of thunderstorm activity that we're kind of waking up to across this Galesburg, Peoria, Champaign, Lafayette sort of corridor here. So we will watch out for that. But moving forward here, last little area we'll zoom into here is lower Michigan. We'll get some thunderstorm activity early mid-afternoon. And, these could produce some, they could reach strong to severe limits. I would really, though, watch the leftovers of this energy out of Wisconsin that crosses over Lake Michigan, later tonight. How much of a punch will this still be packing as it gets in the Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo? This is 10, 11, 12, 1 a.m. It almost looks like the thunderstorms get back together after it pulls away from Lake Michigan. And, it's around midnight. Saginaw, Flint, these storms look to almost intensify as we get into the overnight hours. So that's something to watch out for. Just watch out for damaging winds with these storms, especially in this region of the country. The western U.S., just rain up here in eastern Montana, the Dakotas. You're on the cooler side things. But you can see the thunderstorms developing across the Four Corners region. We've already broke down Colorado, but we're going to get a lot of rain across Arizona today. I'm sure you'll take that instead of just hot and oven-like conditions. But the entire northwestern area of the country remains pretty quiet. Temperatures, hot all the way up into southeast Canada. But check out this thermal boundary right here. And I mean, even in the UP of Michigan, folks, there's going to be a pretty solid temperature boundary up in the UP. Some areas will be in the 50s. Some areas will be warm. Lisa, Steven, you guys will have to tell me what side of this boundary you're going to be on the day. But very hot temperatures down the Mississippi Valley. Oof, sheesh, brutal. It's just summer, guys. It's brutal. I don't know about y'all, but I do not like this time of summer. I just can't stand it. It irritates me when I walk outside. I know they say, hey, embrace every season for what it is. Time flies by. You don't want to rush the time. And I'm not trying to rush it. I'm just trying to wish that, summer was not this hot. But I live in South Carolina. It's just the way it is. But anyways, you can see the cooler temperatures because of this jet digging south. So it's not as bad in areas in Nebraska, points north today. But it's pretty hot across the western U.S. That's all I got. I do apologize once again for no Bible devotion. I actually have the scripture that we're going to talk on for tomorrow. Just didn't have a lot of time to dive into it this morning. Just was absolutely worn out. Went to bed at like 8 o'clock last night, and at least that happened at the end of the video. That's cool. But that's all I got. God bless all y'all, and I appreciate y'all very much. And you guys have a wonderful day. We'll talk soon.